My phone rang at 9:47 p.m., right when I was brushing my teeth and trying not to think about my unfinished laundry. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me tightened, like my body recognized a problem before my brain did. "Hi, is this Emma Miller?" a woman asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Mercy General. You're listed as the emergency contact for a patient who was brought in tonight. He had an accident. We can't reach anyone else." I laughed, because it made no sense. "I'm sorry, you have the wrong person. I don't even know. We don't have a name we can confirm yet." She cut in gently. "His phone is locked, but your number is marked as emergency contact. He's conscious but confused. Could you come?" I stood there with toothpaste in my mouth, staring at my own reflection like she might explain it. A stranger's emergency contact. Me. I didn't even know his name. 10 minutes later, I was throwing on a coat and grabbing my keys, telling myself I was only going to fix a mistake. Just sign something, point them to the right family, then go home. But when I reached the hospital and saw him through the glass, bruised and stubbornly trying to sit up, he looked straight at me like he'd been waiting. And that's when the nurse said, "He's been asking for you." The first time my phone rang, I almost let it die in silence. It was 9:47 p.m., and I was standing in my bathroom with one sock on, one sock missing, toothpaste foam at the corner of my mouth, and my hair in that messy bun that's less cute and more I gave up at 6 p.m. Unknown number. I stared at it like it might confess something. Normally, I don't answer. Unknown numbers mean car warnings, spam, or someone trying to sell me solar panels like my apartment has a roof I control. But the phone rang again. Same number. The second ring made my stomach dip, the way it does right before bad news, even when you don't have a reason. I answered. "Hello." A woman's voice, calm and practiced, filled my ear. "Hi, is this Emma Miller?" "Yes, this is Emma. This is Mercy General Hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact for a patient who was brought in tonight." My brain snagged on the words emergency contact like a sweater catching on a nail. "I'm sorry," I said, already half laughing because it was so absurd. "That can't be right. You must have the wrong person." There was a pause. Not awkward, just serious. "We have your number marked as emergency contact on the patient's phone," she said. "We can't reach anyone else. He had an accident. He's conscious but confused." I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. "Who is he?" "We can't confirm the name yet," she admitted. "His phone is locked. He's in the ER. We just need someone listed on record to come in, at least to help us contact family. Could you come?" I stood there staring at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked too wide, like I was watching someone else's life crack open. "A mistake," I said, mostly to myself. "This is a mistake." "I understand," the nurse replied, softer now. "But right now, you're the only person we can call." The toothbrush slipped from my hand and clinked into the sink. My pulse started climbing like it was trying to escape my chest. Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll come, but I don't know him." "Thank you," she said quickly, like she'd been holding her breath. "Please come to the ER entrance. We'll be expecting you." The call ended, and for a second, everything was quiet except the faint hum of my bathroom fan and the pounding in my ears. I grabbed my phone again and stared at it like it might explain itself. How does a stranger put me down as their emergency contact? I opened my recent calls. Same number. I checked my contacts, half expecting to see something new appear. Nothing. No explanation. No name. Just me, standing in my apartment, suddenly responsible for a person I had never met. I rinsed my mouth, wiped my face, and moved like I was on autopilot. Jeans, hoodie, coat, keys, wallet. I shoved my hair into a tighter bun and tried not to think about the fact that my hands were shaking. On the way down the stairs, my neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, opened her door to grab a package. "Evening, Emma," she called. I forced a smile that probably looked like pain. "Hey, just going out." Her eyes narrowed, the way older women can somehow read your whole story in one glance. "Everything okay?" "Yep." I lied too fast. "Just a thing." Outside, the air was cold and sharp. The streetlights made the wet pavement shine like black glass. My car felt too small, like I was climbing into a toy. As I drove, my thoughts chased each other in circles. Maybe someone stole my number. Maybe it's a prank. Maybe they dialed the wrong person, and I'm about to walk into the most embarrassing misunderstanding of my life. But then I picture the nurse's voice, steady and careful, and the way she said, accident. That word doesn't belong in pranks. Mercy General was only 15 minutes away, but it felt like I was driving toward a different version of my night. When I pulled into the parking lot, the hospital looked like a glowing box in the dark. Too bright, too awake, a place that never closes its eyes. I parked crooked, didn't even fix it, and hurried in. The ER entrance smelled like disinfectant and tired air. The fluorescent lights made everything look slightly unreal, like a set where someone forgot to add warmth. A security guard pointed me toward the check-in desk. The nurse from the phone wasn't there, but another woman in scrubs looked up. "Can I help you?" "My name is Emma Miller," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I got a call. They said I'm listed as an emergency contact." Her expression shifted immediately. Recognition. "Oh, yes." She stood. "Come with me." My stomach flipped. We walked down a hallway lined with curtain bays. I heard snippets of other lives. Coughing, murmur instructions, the beep 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 of monitors. A baby crying somewhere far away. A man laughing too loudly, like he was trying to prove he wasn't scared. The nurse stopped in front of a glass door and held her badge up to a scanner. "Before we go in," she said quietly, "he's okay. No major injuries." But he was disoriented when he came in. I nodded like I understood, like my body wasn't buzzing. She opened the door, and there he was, sitting up on the edge of a hospital bed like he'd been told not to, his shoulders tense, one hand braced behind him. A bandage was pressed to his brow, with a thin line of dried blood peeking from underneath. His dark hair was messy, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. There was a bruise blooming on his cheekbone. He didn't look helpless. He looked furious about being there. A doctor was speaking to him, but Ryan, whoever he was, wasn't really listening. His eyes kept flicking toward the door, toward the hallway, like he was waiting for someone to appear and prove this wasn't happening. Then his gaze landed on me, and the change in his face was instant, like someone had turned down the noise inside his head. He stared, blinking once, then twice, as if he couldn't decide if I was real. The nurse gently touched my elbow. "This is her," she said to him, like she was delivering something precious. His jaw tightened. His eyes, surprisingly light in the harsh hospital lighting, held mine. And then he said, hoarse and blunt, like he didn't know how to soften it, "You actually came." I froze, because I still didn't know his name. I didn't know his story. I didn't even know how my number ended up in his phone. But the way he looked at me made it feel like, somehow, I wasn't just a random mistake in his night. I was the answer to something, and I had no idea what I just stepped into. For a second, I just stood there, half in the doorway, like the floor might tilt if I moved too fast. "You actually came," he repeated, quieter this time, as if he couldn't believe the words even after he'd said them. Yeah, I managed." My voice sounded small in that sterile room. "They said I was listed as your emergency contact, which makes no sense because I don't know you." The doctor glanced between us with the kind of tired patience you only see in emergency rooms, then looked at the nurse. "Can you give us a moment?" The nurse nodded, and both of them stepped just outside the glass door. Not far, close enough to hear if something went sideways, but giving us the dignity of pretending this wasn't the strangest meet cute on earth. The man on the bed shifted like he was about to stand up, then thought better of it. His hand went to the bandage on his brow, pressing gently. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I swear I didn't. I didn't put you in this position on purpose." "Okay," I said, holding up one hand like I was stopping traffic. "Start with your name." He blinked, then exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh. "Right. Yeah. My name is Ryan. Ryan Carter." "Ryan," I repeated, letting it settle. It helped, just having a name. A label for the chaos. "I'm Emma." "I know." He looked genuinely embarrassed. "That's the problem." My stomach tightened again. "Why do you know my name?" His eyes flicked to my phone, still in my hand. like it was the culprit. Because your name is in my phone. Under emergency contact. I stared at him, then at my phone, then back at him. I've never given you my number. I've never asked for it, he said a little too fast. Then he paused, as if realizing how that sounded. I mean, I've never met you. Not really. I don't know how it got there. There was a beat of silence, where we both just looked at each other. Two strangers sharing the same sinking feeling. What happened? I asked softer now. They said an accident. Ryan's throat worked as he swallowed. I passed out. I was walking to my car after work. Next thing I know, I'm on the sidewalk with two guys leaning over me, and someone calling 911. He shrugged, trying for casual, but his face betrayed him. He was shaken. He just didn't want anyone to see it. They ran some tests, he added. Nothing major. Dehydration, low blood sugar, a concussion. I'm fine. You're in a hospital bed with a bandage on your face, I said. That's not fine. That's fine the way people say it right before they make things worse. His mouth twitched, like he almost smiled. Fair. I took a step closer to the bed, keeping my distance but no longer hovering at the door. So why did the hospital call me? Don't you have family? Friends? Ryan's eyes shifted away for the first time, landing on the blank wall. My sister lives 2 states away. My dad's not really in the picture. Most of my friends are work friends. And honestly, I didn't even know who they'd call if something happened. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Not pity. Something sharper. Recognition of a loneliness people try to hide under routines. And then he continued, his voice more clipped. The nurse said my phone had an emergency contact. And it was you. I let out a slow breath. Okay, so it's a clerical error. Or a prank. Or... The door opened, and the doctor came back in, holding a clipboard. Ryan Carter? The doctor confirmed. Ryan nodded. Yeah. The doctor turned to me. And you're Emma Miller? My stomach dropped again. Hearing my full name in a hospital room felt wrong, like a legal document had grabbed my life by the collar. Yes, I said. But I'm not. I don't know him. I'm not his emergency contact. We understand, the doctor said gently, like he'd said this 1,000 times. But your number is listed as his IC contact. We need to make sure he has a safe discharge plan. He has a mild concussion, and while he's alert, he shouldn't be driving himself home. I can call an Uber, Ryan said immediately. The doctor gave him a look. You can, but someone needs to hear the discharge instructions and confirm you're getting home safely. It's standard when there's confusion, dizziness, or head injury. Ryan glanced at me, and there was a plea there he wasn't asking out loud. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I hadn't come here to be responsible for a stranger. I had come to correct a mistake. But the doctor's tone was calm, professional, not dramatic. This wasn't a romance novel moment. This was a basic safety moment. I looked at Ryan again, at the bruise on his cheek, at the stubborn set of his shoulders, and at the way his fingers kept tapping his knee like his body couldn't settle. Fine, I said. I can listen, but I'm not signing anything that makes me legally responsible for him. The doctor's face underscore toggle of relief was subtle, but I saw it. That's reasonable. The nurse stepped in with a paper packet and a pen. This is just acknowledgement that you received the instructions, not financial responsibility. I took the pen anyway, suspicious like I was in a spy movie. The doctor explained, no driving for 24 hours. Someone should check on him. Come back if he vomits, loses consciousness, gets worse headaches, confusion, vision changes. Hydrate, rest, follow up with his primary care physician. I nodded along, repeating the key points out loud, like a student trying to pass a test. The whole time, Ryan watched me with this strange intensity, like my presence itself was doing something to him that he didn't know how to name. When the doctor left, the nurse handed Ryan a small plastic bag with his wallet, keys, and phone. Ryan stared at the phone like it had betrayed him. I'm sorry, he said again, voice low. This is so stupid. It's not stupid, I said, surprising myself with how firm it came out. It's just weird, and kind of scary if we're being honest. He nodded once. Yeah, it is. The nurse leaned in. We'll need the emergency contact corrected in our system. It might have been entered at the urgent care clinic or during intake. If you can confirm tomorrow, that would help prevent future calls. Tomorrow? I echoed, feeling suddenly exhausted. Sure. The nurse left us again, and now it was just me and Ryan, suspended in that quiet, fluorescent limbo. He rubbed his forehead carefully and said, I can call myself an Uber. You don't have to stay. I should have said, great. Bye. Instead, I heard myself ask, do you live alone? Ryan's eyes lifted to mine and he didn't lie. Yeah. There was again that little twist in my chest. Not romance. Not yet. Just the human fact of it. I glanced at the packet of papers in my hand, at his bruised face, at his keys. I'll wait until your Uber gets here, I said. Then I'm leaving. Because this is a mistake, Ryan. A weird mistake. He swallowed. Like my words hit something tender. Okay, he said. Yeah, a mistake. But then his gaze drifted down to my hands and back up, and he added, almost under his breath, still thank you. His Uber ETA popped up on his screen, and we both watched it like it was a countdown to normal life returning. Only it didn't feel like normal anymore, because my name was still sitting in his phone under emergency contact, like a quiet little claim. And as he tucked the phone away, the nurse came back in one last time and said something that made my stomach flip all over again. By the way, the intake note says your emergency contact was added earlier today at a clinic. I blinked. Earlier today? Ryan went still. The nurse nodded. Yes. Which means it wasn't entered here. She left. Ryan and I looked at each other in the sudden silence, both thinking the same thing. If it wasn't the hospital. Ryan didn't speak right away. He just sat there, staring at the wall like it might suddenly print the answer in bold letters. Then he exhaled, slow, like he was trying to keep his thoughts from spilling everywhere. Earlier today, he repeated. Okay, that actually helps. How? I asked, because to me it felt like the universe had just added a second lock to the same door. Ryan lifted his bag of belongings, pulled out his phone, and turned it in his hands like it was a suspicious object. Because I was at a clinic today. I blinked. You were? Yeah. He rubbed his thumb over the edge of the case. I didn't tell the ER staff because it seemed unrelated. I went to urgent care this afternoon. My eyebrows shot up. For what? He hesitated, the tough guy shell trying to reassemble itself. I've been feeling off all week. Lightheaded. Weird headaches. I thought it was stress. Or too much coffee. Then today, around lunch, I stood up too fast and everything went static. Static. That word landed in me because I knew that feeling. The body's warning signal. The one you ignore until it becomes a siren. So you went to urgent care, I said. Yeah, he replied. They checked my vitals, asked me a million questions, told me to hydrate and eat actual food, not just protein bars. They said if it happened again, go to the ER. He gave a humorless laugh. So, I guess I followed instructions. I leaned back in the plastic chair, arms crossing without me deciding to do it. My brain was assembling the timeline like a detective who didn't ask for the case. Okay, I said slowly. So urgent care. Earlier today. And now I'm your emergency contact. Ryan nodded. I think I know how. You think you know how? I repeated, because that wasn't comforting. He unlocked his phone and swiped to a screen I couldn't fully see. At the clinic, they had this tablet at the front desk, like an iPad on a stand. They asked me to confirm my info and fill out the intake form. My stomach turned, not from fear, but from pure, boring realism, because I could already picture it. A shared device, a rushed receptionist, a line behind him, a field that auto-completes. Ryan continued. I remember there was a section for emergency contact, name and number. I was standing there trying to answer questions while my head was spinning, and the receptionist was talking over it like, just hit next, just sign at the bottom. And you didn't check what it filled in, I said, but gently, because his face made it clear he'd already said it to himself 100 times. I didn't, he admitted. His jaw tightened. I assumed it was blank, or that it wouldn't save without me typing something. But if someone else used that tablet right before me, it could have autofilled, I finished. He nodded once. Yeah. There was a quiet moment where the explanation sat between us, plain and unromantic. Not fate, not mystery, just a small, dumb human error. And somehow that made it worse. Because if a simple autofill could drag me out of my bathroom and into an ER room with a stranger's blood on his forehead, what else could a small mistake turn into? Ryan looked at me like he was bracing for me to yell. I didn't. I just exhaled and pressed my fingertips to my temple. So my number was probably the last thing entered on that tablet. Probably, he said. Which means you were at that clinic today. I froze. No, I wasn't. Ryan's eyes narrowed. Not accusing, just confused. Then how would I have your number? My heart sped up. I wasn't. I haven't been to any clinic. I was at work all day. He stared at me, and I could see the same math happening in his head. Unless, he said slowly, you were the previous patient. I'm telling you I wasn't. I believe you, he said quick. I'm just trying to make it make sense. The room felt smaller. The hum of the hospital lights suddenly too loud. If I wasn't the previous patient, then my number was in that tablet for another reason. Someone else. Another Emma. Another form. Or the clinic had mixed two files. I reached for logic, like it was a railing. Okay. We fix it tomorrow. We call the clinic. You change the emergency contact. That's it. Ryan nodded, but his shoulders didn't relax. Yeah. Tomorrow. His phone buzzed in his hand, and he glanced down. Uber's here. He stood carefully, slower than he wanted to, and the nurse appeared like she'd been waiting behind a curtain in the walls. Do you feel okay to walk? She asked. I'm fine, he said again. She gave him a look that said you're not charming me, sir, then glanced at me. You're going with him? I flinched. No, I'm not. I'm just making sure he gets outside. I finished, surprising myself with the words. The nurse handed Ryan a paper with instructions and a sticky note attached. Please do not ignore symptoms. Follow up with your doctor. Ryan tucked it into his pocket. Got it. We walked out together, through the hallways and the sliding doors, into the cold night. The air hit my face like a reset button. His Uber was a gray sedan idling by the curb. The driver glanced at us in the rearview mirror, neutral and bored. Like this was just another pickup. Ryan stopped a few feet away from the car, turning toward me. Under the streetlight, the bruise on his cheek looked darker. The bandage on his brow made him look younger. Strangely. More human. Less invincible. So, he said, clearing his throat. Tomorrow. I'll call the clinic. Fix the emergency contact. Apologize properly. Good. I said too quickly. He nodded once, then hesitated, as if he wasn't sure what he was allowed to say. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. I know, I replied, and my voice softened despite me. But they said accident. It didn't feel like something I could ignore. Ryan's gaze held mine, steady and serious. Still, thank you. I swallowed. You're welcome. He reached for the Uber door handle, then paused like another thought caught him. If you want, he said carefully, I could buy you coffee tomorrow. Not as a date, just as a sorry I ruined your evening thing. My first instinct was to say no. Clean cut. End scene. Go home. But then I picture myself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my number ended up in a stranger's emergency contact field, and wondering if he made it home okay. A mistake had already pulled me into his night. Coffee wouldn't make it worse. Right? Coffee. I repeated, buying time. Ryan lifted a hand like he was surrendering. Or not. Seriously. No pressure. I looked at his face, at the tiredness behind his stubbornness, and heard myself say, okay, coffee. Tomorrow. His expression shifted, subtle but real. Relief. Gratitude. Something warmer that neither of us named. Okay, he said and opened the Uber door. Text me. I blinked. I don't have your number. He held up his phone with a crooked, almost smile. Pretty sure you do. I huffed out a laugh before I could stop it. Right. Emergency contact. He slid into the back seat, then leaned forward to look at me through the open door. Good night, Emma, he said, like it meant more than it should. Good night, Ryan, I replied. The Uber pulled away, taillights dissolving into the wet shine of the road. I stood there for a moment, hands in my coat pockets, staring at the empty curb. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. From an unknown number. Ryan made it out. Thank you again. Coffee tomorrow. I stared at it, hard doing that stupid little jump. And then I noticed something that made my breath catch. Because the contact name wasn't Ryan Carter. It was saved on my phone as emergency contact. I should have been relieved. The mystery had a perfectly boring explanation. A clinic tablet, an autofill, a rushed signature. Case closed. Credits roll. I go back to folding laundry like a normal person. Instead, I stood on my sidewalk at almost midnight, staring at the message from a stranger whose name I'd learned 3 hours ago, while my phone insisted he was simply emergency contact. Something about that label made my skin prickle, like my life had been quietly rewritten by a drop-down menu. I walked back upstairs, unlocked my apartment, and set my keys down too hard. My brain kept replaying the night in sharp little clips. The nurse's voice, the fluorescent lights, Ryan's bruised face, the way he looked at me when he said, "You actually came." I told myself it meant nothing. He was shaken. He needed a person. My number happened to be there. Still, my thumbs hovered over the screen. Me, glad you're home. Coffee tomorrow works. Where? I hit send before I could change my mind. His reply came fast. Emergency contact. There's a place on 8th called Harbor and Stone. 10 a.m. I can walk. No driving, doctor's orders. I stared at that, and an unexpected laugh escaped me. The first real laugh of the night. Because of course the responsible thing was the funniest thing after everything. Me. 10 a.m. fine. But you're changing my name in your phone. A few seconds later. Emergency contact. Deal. And I'm changing yours too. Toothpaste hero. I roll my eyes so hard it almost counted as exercise. The next morning I woke up with the kind of tired that sits behind your eyes, even after sleep. The sort of tired that comes from adrenaline spending the night redecorating your nervous system. I stood in front of my closet and made the worst possible choice. I tried to look like I wasn't trying. The result was a simple sweater, jeans, and boots, plus the careful effort of pretending I didn't care. I checked myself in the mirror and whispered, "This is not a date." My reflection didn't look convinced. Harbor and Stone was one of those coffee shops that felt like it was designed to make people talk. Warm lighting, soft music, plants hanging from the ceiling like they were eavesdropping. It smelled like espresso and cinnamon and second chances. I arrived a few minutes early and immediately hated myself for being early. I chose a table near the window, mostly because I wanted an escape route. If he didn't show up, I could pretend I was there to journal. If he did show up, I could still run. Then, through the glass, I saw him crossing the street. Ryan walked a little slower than he probably wanted to. He had on a dark jacket, jeans, and sneakers. The bandage on his brow was smaller now, but it still stood out, like proof that last night wasn't a weird dream. He spotted me and lifted his hand in a small wave, and my stomach did something annoyingly childish. He stepped inside, the bell over the door chiming softly, and his eyes found me again like they'd been trained for it. "Emma," he said, stopping at the table. His voice sounded better today, more grounded. "Ryan," I replied. Then, because I couldn't help it, I added, "You look alive." He gave a quick, crooked smile. "Strong start." I pointed at his forehead. "You're still not supposed to be driving." "I'm not," he said. I walked, like a man who follows medical advice. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if the barista might judge him. Also like a man who doesn't want you to think he's an idiot. I snorted. "Too late." He placed a hand over his chest dramatically. "Wounded." We ordered coffee, and when we sat back down, there was a brief, awkward pause where we both remembered we were strangers who had met in an ER because of a clerical mistake. Ryan broke it first. "So, I called the clinic." My eyebrows lifted. "Already? First thing this morning," he said, "because I figured you deserved proof that I'm not going to let this happen again." That sentence hit me harder than it should have. The idea of someone treating my time like it mattered. Like I mattered. "What did they say?" I asked. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. They admitted they've had issues with the tablet autofill. Apparently it's supposed to clear fields between patients, but if the system lags, he shrugged. Anyway, they said they're going to correct my file and double-check their process. And my number? I asked. They removed it, he said. Then he looked at me, serious. They asked me if you were my contact on purpose. I said no. I felt my shoulders drop a fraction, the tension releasing. Good. Yeah, he said. And his eyes held mine for a beat too long. Good. The barista called our names, and Ryan went to pick up the drinks. When he came back, he slid mine toward me carefully, like he was handing me something fragile. Thanks, I said. He sat, then pulled out his phone. Okay, you wanted me to change your name. Yes, I said immediately. I don't want to be emergency contact in anyone's phone unless we're married and sharing a dog. Ryan's smile flickered wider. Noted. He tapped on his screen, then turned the phone so I could see. My number was there, but the label was gone. Just my name, Emma Miller. He looked up. Better? I nodded. A strange warmth settling in my chest. Better? Then he hesitated, eyes dropping to his coffee cup. Can I ask you something without making it weird? I raised an eyebrow. That depends on the question. He exhaled a short laugh, then said, How did your number end up in that clinic system in the first place if you weren't there yesterday? My stomach tightened again. I don't know, I admitted. That's the part that freaks me out. Because I wasn't urgent care. I was at work. All day. Ryan leaned forward slightly, his expression focused. Do you have a common name? Emma Miller, I said flatly. You tell me. He nodded like that was fair. Okay, so maybe there's another Emma. Or maybe the tablet saved your number from some other form. Like a delivery app, a patient portal, a pharmacy. I shook my head. I don't even go to that clinic. Ryan's jaw tightened, the way it had the night before when he felt responsible. I'm sorry. I took a sip of coffee, buying time. It was hot and bitter and grounding. It's not your fault. But it became my problem, he said. Then he added, softer, You didn't have to be nice about it. That made me look up. Because I wasn't being nice on purpose. I wasn't performing kindness. I was just there. And somehow he noticed. I wasn't trying to be anything. I said honestly. I just didn't want you alone in that place. Ryan's eyes softened. Not in a dramatic, movie way. In a quiet, almost careful way. Like he didn't want to spook whatever this was becoming. He cleared his throat and changed direction, like he needed air. So, about last night. The nurse said I kept asking for you. My cheeks warmed. Yeah, she did. Ryan's ears turned slightly red. That was not intentional. Sure, I said, skeptical. He lifted both hands. Okay, yes, I asked. But only because I thought if you showed up, it would mean I wasn't losing my mind. Like, if I had a contact at all, it meant I had done something right. That was such a simple sentence, but it landed heavy. I stared at him, suddenly imagining the moment he woke up on a sidewalk, confused, embarrassed, scared, and then hearing a nurse say, We called your emergency contact, and clinging to the idea that at least one person might walk through that door, even if it was a mistake. My throat tightened. I hated how much I understood it. So, I said lightly, forcing the mood back up before my emotions started doing their own thing. You bought me coffee to apologize. Ryan nodded. Yes. And now the mistake is fixed. Yes, he said again. I held his gaze. So we're done. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window at the street, then back at me, like he was choosing words from a limited supply. We could be, he said, if that's what you want. My heart did a small, stupid beat. And if it's not? I asked, quieter than I meant to. Ryan's mouth twitched, almost smile, almost something else. Then, maybe coffee doesn't have to be a one-time apology. I felt my face heat, and I hated myself for it. Because I could still walk away. I could still go back to my safe little life, where no one accidentally makes me responsible for their existence. But sitting across from him, I realized something uncomfortable. Last night hadn't just pulled me into his emergency. It had cracked open my routine. It had made space for a person. I glanced down at my cup, then back up. Okay, I said. But next time, no hospital involvement. Ryan let out a breath that sounded like relief. Deal. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted, subtle but sharp. What? I asked. Ryan frowned. It's a call. He turned the screen slightly toward me. The caller ID said, Sarah's sister. He stared at it like it was a ghost. Then he looked at me, confusion tightening his features again. My sister shouldn't have this number, he said slowly. I didn't give it to her. My stomach dropped, because somehow, even after fixing the mistake, the snowball was still rolling. Ryan didn't answer right away. He just stared at the screen like it had insulted him. Sarah's sister. Maybe you saved it? I suggested, but even as I said it, it sounded flimsy. He had barely been conscious last night. Ryan shook his head. No, I haven't talked to her in 2 weeks. And I definitely didn't add her number this morning. I was on hold with the clinic for 40 minutes. I would remember. The phone kept vibrating on the table between our cups like it was impatient. Finally, Ryan grabbed it and swiped to answer. Sarah. A woman's voice burst through the speaker, sharp with panic. Ryan. Oh my God. Are you okay? Are you alive? I flinched. It was the kind of fear you can hear in a person's throat, like the words are fighting their way out. I'm fine, Ryan said quickly. Too calm, like he was trying to calm her by force. I'm home. I'm literally sitting in a coffee shop. There was a breath on the other end. Then why didn't you call me? I didn't know you knew, he snapped, then softened immediately. How do you even have this number? I got a missed call notification from Mercy General, she said, voice breaking slightly. It came through some hospital system. Then I called back, and they said they couldn't give me information because I wasn't listed. So I told them I was his sister, and they said there was an emergency contact number that answered. Ryan's eyes flicked to me, like he just realized what she meant. Sarah continued. They wouldn't tell me who it was, but I begged. I said, please, just tell me if he's okay. And the nurse said he was conscious and that someone was coming. Ryan's jaw clenched. And you called this number because... Sarah's voice softened. Because the nurse hinted that the emergency contact might still be nearby. So I asked for the contact number to leave a message. They refused. But when I called the ER line again, a different person picked up and accidentally read back the number they had on file. He went silent. I went colder. So it wasn't just an autofill mistake. It was a chain reaction. One tiny error. Then a second human slip, and suddenly my phone number was traveling through hospital hands like a baton. Ryan's gaze fixed on me, apologetic and tense at the same time. Sarah, he said, I was fine. It was a minor accident. Concussion, dehydration. Nothing life-threatening. On the other end, Sarah exhaled a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Do you have any idea what it feels like to get a hospital call about your brother when you live 7 hours away? Ryan's face shifted, like he wanted to say something kind and didn't know how. I'm sorry, he said finally. I didn't mean to scare you. There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice dropped into a calmer register. Not calm exactly. Controlled. Who answered as your emergency contact? She asked. Ryan looked at me again. I could practically hear the gears in his head turning, weighing privacy against truth. It was someone I don't know, he admitted. It was a mistake. Sarah's silence was instant and heavy. A mistake. Yes, he said. Clinic intake messed up. And the person still came, Sarah said. And now there was curiosity threaded into her tone. Why would a stranger come? Ryan's eyes held mine like he was asking permission without asking. I took a slow breath, leaned toward the phone and said, Hi, Sarah. I'm Emma. I really don't know how my number ended up there. But the hospital called and I didn't want them to have no one. There was a tiny pause and then, unexpectedly, Sarah's voice softened like warm butter on toast. Emma, thank you. Of course, I said, and my throat tightened because gratitude always gets me more than anger. Sarah added, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but Ryan has this habit of acting like he's made of concrete. Ryan rolled his eyes. Wow. I'm serious, Sarah said. He minimizes everything. He didn't even tell me he was going to urgent care. Ryan blinked. Wait, how do you know about that? I called your workplace, she said flatly. Don't yell at me. They said you left early yesterday for a doctor appointment, and I nearly drove off the road. Ryan's face went pale for a second. Sarah, I'm okay now, she rushed, then lowered her voice. But I need you to promise me you'll take care of yourself. Ryan's gaze dropped to his coffee. I will. Sarah wasn't done. And I need to know you're not alone. I'm not alone, he said. But his tone wasn't defensive. It was resigned. Sarah's next words landed like a gentle hammer. You're always alone, Ryan. You just don't call it that. The air between us tightened. Even the coffee shop noise felt distant, like the world had turned down its volume out of respect. Ryan didn't answer. His fingers tapped the table once, then stilled. Sarah cleared her throat, like she realized she'd stepped too far into something raw. Emma, she said, addressing me again. Can I say something weird? I gave a small, uncertain smile. After the last 12 hours, I think weird is the theme. Sarah let out a breathy laugh. Okay, thank you for showing up. Not just because it helped the hospital, but because Ryan doesn't let people show up for him. Ryan's eyes flicked up, annoyed. Sarah, I'm not trying to marry you off, Sarah said quickly. I'm grateful. I swallowed. It was the right thing. Sarah's voice softened again. Still, thank you. Then she paused, and I could hear her thinking, like she was walking carefully across ice. Ryan, she said, do you have her number saved? Ryan glanced at me, then back to the phone. Yes, I changed it. It's saved as Emma now. Sarah made a satisfied sound. Good. And you changed your emergency contact to me, right? Ryan's face tightened. Yes. Okay, she said, firm. Then I'm going to do something annoying and sister-like. Ryan sighed. Here we go. I'm booking a flight, Sarah said. Ryan sat up straighter. No. Yes, she said. Not to hover. Just for the weekend. I want to see you. I want to make sure you're actually eating food and not surviving on caffeine in spite. I don't survive on spite, Ryan muttered. You absolutely do, Sarah replied without missing a beat. Then she added, Emma, I'm sorry if this is too much, but if you're comfortable, would you text me your address? Not to invade, just so I know where my brother is if he tries to pull another I'm fine routine. I blinked, caught off guard. The request was reasonable, but it also made everything feel suddenly real. Like I'd stumbled into a family system, not a one-time mistake. Ryan's eyes widened. Sarah, don't put that on her. It's okay, I said gently, because I didn't want him to feel like he owed me anything. I can text you my number. You can have it directly. Sarah exhaled again, relieved. Thank you. And Emma? Yeah. Her voice warmed, sincere. If you ever need anything, okay? I don't know you, but you did something most people wouldn't. That matters. I felt my eyes sting, and I hated that about myself. Okay. Ryan's jaw worked like he was holding back something he didn't want to say in front of his sister. Sarah finished. All right. I'm going to stop being intense. Ryan, rest. Emma, thanks again. I'll talk to you both soon. Bye, Sarah, Ryan said. Bye, I added. The call ended. Ryan set the phone down carefully, like it might explode if he dropped it. For a moment we just sat there, surrounded by the normal life of the coffee shop. People typing, laughing softly, a barista calling orders. And yet it felt like we just walked through a storm. Ryan rubbed his face and exhaled. I'm sorry you got pulled into that. It's fine, I said automatically. Ryan's eyes lifted to mine. No, it's not. You didn't sign up for my sister's worry spiral. I hesitated, then said the honest thing. She's not spiraling. She's scared. Ryan's mouth tightened. I know. Something in his expression made me soften. He wasn't annoyed at Sarah. He was ashamed of needing anyone. And I understood that too well. I took a sip of coffee, then said, So she's coming for the weekend. Ryan groaned. Apparently. And she knows my name now, I added. Ryan looked at me, and a faint smile tugged at his mouth despite everything. Yeah, sorry about that. I should have felt like this was my cue to back away, to return to the clean boundaries of strangers. Instead, I felt something else. A strange, quiet pull. Like the mistake wasn't just a mistake anymore. Like it had introduced me to a part of him he couldn't hide. The way his people cared about him. The way he tried to pretend he didn't need it. The way he quietly did. My phone buzzed. A new message. From Sarah. Sarah, Emma, thank you again. Also, can you tell me one thing? What did he look like last night? Was he scared? I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, because the question wasn't really about bruises or bandages. It was about whether Ryan had been alone in his fear, and I had been the person who walked in. I looked up at Ryan across the table. He was staring out the window, jaw set, pretending he hadn't just been seen too clearly. And in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop in a different way. This wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't answer Sarah right away. I just stared at her message until the words started to feel heavier than they should have. Was he scared? It was such a simple question, but it hooked into something tender because I knew the truth. Ryan had been terrified, and he had been trying to look like he wasn't. I glanced up at him across the table. He was watching the street through the window, like it held instructions for how to be a person who doesn't need anyone. His shoulders were squared, his jaw set, his coffee untouched for the last few minutes. I could have made the smart choice, the clean choice. I could have stood up, said, "Glad you're okay, good luck," and walked out while this was still just a story I tell my friends with disbelief and laughter. Instead, my thumb hovered over the keyboard. To Sarah he was shaken, but he tried hard not to show it. He's okay now. I promise. I hit send. Ryan noticed the movement and looked back at me. That's my sister, isn't it? I nodded. He sighed. What did she say? I tilted my screen slightly, enough for him to see the question. His face tightened for a second. Then he looked away again. She worries like it's her job, he muttered. Maybe it is, I said gently. If you never let anyone know when you're not okay. Ryan's eyes flicked back to mine. There was no anger in them, just that stubborn, guarded pride that comes from being the person who always handles things alone. I am okay, he said, but it sounded more like a habit than a fact. I didn't argue. I just set my phone down and took a slow sip of coffee. Anyway, I said, choosing a lighter tone like I was placing a blanket over something sharp. Your sister has my number now. Congratulations. Your family tree has expanded. Ryan gave a short laugh. It sounded like relief. I'm sorry. It's fine, I repeated, and then, because my conscience wouldn't let me be lazy, I added, but we're not turning this into a thing. Ryan's smile faded slightly, replaced by careful attention. A thing? Yes, I said. A snowball. I showed up because the hospital called. I came to coffee because you were polite. That's it. He nodded once, slow. Okay. I try not to notice the tiny disappointment in his eyes. I have a life, I continued, because now that I'd started, I couldn't stop. And you have a life. And the emergency contact is fixed, so this should end. Ryan's fingers tapped his cup, then still. Yeah, he said quietly. It should. The silence that followed felt too intimate for strangers. So I stood up, forcing momentum. I should go. Ryan stood too, slower, mindful of his concussion. I'll walk you out. You don't have to. I know, he said, and that small echo of last night made my stomach flip again. But I want to. We walked to the door together. The bell chimed. Cold air hit my face. The street smelled like wet concrete and winter. Outside, we stopped on the sidewalk. This was the moment where people either wave goodbye and become a funny anecdote or they don't. Ryan shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. So that's it. That's it, I confirmed. He nodded, then hesitated. Emma? Yeah. His gaze held mine, steady and serious. I didn't mean for you to get pulled into my life. I really didn't. I believed him. And somehow that made it worse. Okay, I said softly. Take care of yourself, Ryan. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, then closed it. Bye, he said. Bye. I echoed and turned toward my car. I'd made it 3 steps when his voice stopped me. Wait. I turned back. Ryan held up his phone. Can you just do one more thing? Not for me. For the mistake. I frowned. What? The clinic, he said. They told me the only way to fully fix it is to verify the emergency contact change in person, because the intake system and the hospital system don't sync immediately. They said to come back with ID. I blinked. So go back. I will, he said quickly. But they asked if the emergency contact could confirm it too. Like, confirm the number was wrong. so they can flag the tablet issue. My stomach tightened. Ryan, I know, he said, rushing. I know it's asking more. I hate asking. But they said it helps protect you too, like, so your number doesn't stay floating around in their system. That made my body pause. Protect me too. Because that was the part that had been quietly crawling under my skin since last night. The idea that my number had been in a clinic tablet, then in a hospital file, then almost read out loud over the phone. The mistake wasn't romantic. It was messy, and it had my name on it. I exhaled. When? Ryan's shoulders dropped slightly. Relief. Today. If you can, it shouldn't take long. I should have said no. But the truth was, I wanted this fixed. Cleanly. Completely. Fine, I said. But after that, we're really done. Ryan nodded fast. Yes. Done. The urgent care clinic looked exactly like every urgent care clinic. Bright, beige, aggressively calm. A TV in the corner murmuring a daytime show nobody watched. A faint smell of disinfectant and old coffee. Ryan and I stood at the front desk. He gave his name, and the receptionist, a tired-looking woman with a headset, pulled up his file. Yes, she said, eyes scanning. Mr. Carter. We noted the emergency contact issue. Ryan nodded. I updated it to my sister, Sarah Carter. Great, she said, typing. Then she glanced at me. And you are? Emma Miller, I said, and the words felt weird here. Like déjà vu in a place I'd never been. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly. Oh. Ryan looked between us. What? The receptionist turned her monitor slightly away, then lowered her voice. Ms. Miller, are you sure you haven't been here before? A cold flush ran through me. I told you, I said quickly. I haven't. She hesitated, then tapped her screen again. Because your name and number appear in our system already. Not just in the emergency contact field. In a patient profile. My heart dropped like an elevator with cut cables. Ryan went still beside me. What does that mean? The receptionist swallowed. It means there's an Emma Miller in our records. With your number. But the address is different. And the birth date doesn't match what you just said at the desk. I gripped the edge of the counter, so hard my fingers hurt. So it's not me, I said, voice tight. No, she replied quickly. It appears to be another patient with the same name. But the phone number is yours. Ryan's eyes flicked to mine. So someone else gave them your number. Or they typed it wrong. Or the tablet saved it from a different form. Or, my thoughts tangled. The receptionist leaned in again, apologetic. I'm so sorry. That's a serious data entry issue. We're going to escalate it. Ryan's jaw tightened. Can you remove her number from that profile? The receptionist nodded. We can't delete a phone number without verifying the patient identity, but we can flag it as incorrect and remove it from the active contact fields. We can also put a note on the account that the number does not belong to that patient. I swallowed. Please, do that. She typed quickly, then asked for my ID. I handed it over, hand shaking slightly now. As she typed, Ryan shifted closer to me, his voice low. Emma, are you okay? I shook my head once. No. I mean, yes. I don't know. This is creepy. I know, he said. And for the first time, his protectiveness didn't feel like a stranger's politeness. It felt personal. The receptionist returned my ID and looked up. All right. I've flagged the number as wrong and removed it from the contact fields on that other profile. I've also documented the tablet autofill issue in Mr. Carter's intake record. We're escalating to management. My shoulders dropped with relief I didn't realize I was holding. Thank you, I said. Ryan exhaled too. Thank you. We walked out of the clinic into the cold air again, both quieter than before. At the curb, I stopped and turned toward him. Okay, it's fixed. Ryan nodded. It's fixed. So, I said, forcing brightness. Now we're done. Ryan's gaze held mine. He didn't argue. He didn't push. He just said quietly, okay. But his eyes didn't match the word. They were too steady, too present, like he didn't want to let this moment pass without acknowledging what it had become. I'm going, I said, voice softer now. I know, he replied. I took a step back. Then Ryan said, almost under his breath, like it slipped out before he could stop it. I recognized your name. I froze. What? He swallowed, and his fingers tightened around his phone. Yesterday, at the clinic, when it autofilled, I saw Emma Miller, and for a second I thought, maybe it was the same Emma. My pulse kicked up. Same as what? Ryan's eyes met mine, and this time there was something vulnerable there. Something he couldn't hide behind jokes. The Emma who helped me pick up groceries outside her building a few weeks ago, he said quietly. The one I didn't ask for her number. The one I kept thinking about and telling myself to forget. My breath caught, because suddenly the story shifted. The mistake hadn't been just a mistake. It had been a collision. A weird, messy collision between chance and memory. And my boundaries, the neat little fence I'd built around this whole situation, started to look a lot less sturdy. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Not in a dramatic way, just in that small, physical way, where your lungs forget the next step, because your brain is suddenly running 2 timelines at once. The guy with the groceries? I repeated, stupidly. Ryan nodded, eyes steady. Outside your building. Paper bag split. Oranges everywhere. You said something like, "This is how the universe humbles us." My mouth went dry, because I had said that. I could see it now, clear as a flashbulb. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. Late afternoon. I'd been coming home from work, arms full of my own stuff, already annoyed at the day. And there he was on the sidewalk, crouched beside a torn paper bag, trying to gather rolling oranges like they were trying to escape him on purpose. I remembered the way he'd looked up when I stopped, half embarrassed and half relieved, like he didn't want help, but also didn't want to be alone in the ridiculousness of it. I remembered kneeling down with him, grabbing an orange before it hit the curb, handing it over and saying, "This is how the universe humbles us." And I remembered him laughing. Not loud, just a soft sound like it surprised him. Ryan was watching my face now, reading the moment it clicked. "You remember," he said quietly. "I do," I admitted. My cheeks warmed. I didn't realize it was you." "You didn't have a reason to," he said. "I was just some guy with bad luck and too much produce." I let out a short laugh, but it came out shaky. "So you saw my name on the clinic tablet and thought." Ryan swallowed, and the tough shell tried to slide back into place, but it didn't fit anymore. I thought no way. Then I thought maybe. And then I felt like an idiot for even thinking it. My heart did a small, uncomfortable lurch. "Why?" "Because it's not normal to remember a stranger," he said. Then he added very quietly, "But I did." The air between us felt too thin. I tightened my grip on my car keys like they were an anchor. "Okay, so the universe humbled you with oranges, and then it humbled you again with a concussion." Ryan's mouth twitched. "Pretty much. I should have stepped back right then. Put space between us. Put the boundary fence back up. Instead, I heard myself ask, 'Why didn't you ask for my number that day?'" Ryan blinked, like he hadn't expected me to say it out loud. He looked down at the pavement, then back up. "Because you looked like you were in a hurry. And you were nice, but not inviting." "Not inviting," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. He lifted one hand in surrender. "You had that face. The one that says, 'I will help you, but I will also disappear into my apartment and never speak to you again.'" I hated how accurate that was. I laughed. Once, then shook my head. "Fair." Ryan hesitated. "Also, I'm not great at timing." Something about that phrase made me soften again, because it sounded like he'd practiced saying it instead of the real truth. "What do you mean?" I asked. Ryan's eyes flicked away. "I mean, I've spent a lot of time convincing myself I don't need people. So when I actually want to connect, I stall." There it was, the honest version, and I felt that uncomfortable, familiar tug in my chest. The one that recognizes someone else's coping mechanism because you've worn the same one. I cleared my throat, needing to change the temperature before my emotions started doing their own thing. "Okay, so you recognize my name?" "Yes," Ryan said. "And you still didn't put my number in on purpose." I pressed, because my brain needed to lock that fact into place. He shook his head. "No, I swear. It autofilled. I didn't type anything. If I had, I would have done it differently." "How?" I asked, half joking. Ryan's eyes met mine, and that little warmth showed up again. "I would have asked first." My stomach flipped in a way I didn't appreciate. I looked at the clinic doors behind us, then back at him. You're cleared to go home now, right? Ryan nodded. Yeah. Do you have food at home? I asked, because my brain was trying to be practical, not whatever else this was turning into. Ryan hesitated. I have cereal. Ryan. He lifted his hands again. Okay. I have cereal and a can of soup. It's fine. It's not fine, I said automatically. Then I caught myself, because the word came out too personal. Too concerned. Ryan didn't seem offended. He seemed quietly pleased, which annoyed me more. I can walk, he offered. I'm good. I know you can walk, I said. But you should have someone check on you today, right? That's what they said at the hospital. Ryan's jaw tightened. Yeah. And your sister is 7 hours away, I added. He nodded once, like he didn't want to accept help, but also didn't want to lie. I exhaled. Fine. I'll do one more thing. I'll walk you home. I'll make sure you have real food. Then I'm leaving. That's it. Ryan's eyes softened. Emma, you don't have to. I know, I said, and we both recognized the phrase again. But this time he didn't argue. Okay, he said. Thank you. We walked in silence at first. The kind of silence that isn't awkward, just full. The sidewalk was still damp from earlier rain. Cars hissed by. Somewhere, a dog barked like it had strong opinions about the world. After a block, Ryan said, For the record, I did try to find you after the grocery thing. I glanced at him. You did. He nodded, a little embarrassed. I saw your building, but I didn't know which unit. I stood outside like a creep for 30 seconds and then left. I burst out laughing before I could stop myself. That is incredibly honest, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes fully. I'm trying. We reached his place, a small apartment building a few streets over. Inside, his apartment was neat in a way that felt intentional, like he kept things tidy so nothing could surprise him. A couple framed photos on a shelf. A single jacket on a hook. No mess, no chaos, no evidence of someone settling in for comfort. It felt lonely, quiet on purpose. Ryan kicked off his shoes and turned toward me. You want water? Coffee? Apology number 3. Water, I said, because my throat still felt tight. He handed me a glass and opened his fridge. And I had to stop myself from smiling because the fridge looked exactly like he said it would. Cereal. Soup. A sad bag of baby carrots. You live like a man who thinks grocery shopping is a personality flaw, I said. Ryan glanced over his shoulder. I live like a man who forgets to eat until he passes out apparently. I leaned against the counter. Okay, sit. I'm fine, he started. Ryan, I warned. He sighed and sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing his forehead carefully. The bandage was still there, smaller now, but it made him look vulnerable in a way that didn't match his usual posture. I filled a small bowl with baby carrots and shoved it toward him, like I was feeding a stubborn toddler. Eat something. He took one, obeying. Yes, ma'am. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the small smile that tugged at my mouth. Then there was a sound at the door. A key in the lock. Ryan froze mid-chew. My stomach dropped. He stared at the door like it had grown teeth. That's not possible. The lock turned anyway. The door opened, and a woman stepped in carrying a small bag, like she'd come with a plan. She was pretty in that effortless, put-together way. Dark hair, clean coat, the kind of person who looks like she never forgets an appointment. Her eyes landed on Ryan first. Ryan, she breathed, relief flashing across her face. I heard you were in the hospital. Then her gaze shifted. To me, to the water glass in my hand, to the carrots on the counter, to the fact that I was standing in his kitchen like I belonged there. Her expression tightened, confusion sharpening into something else. Who is this? She asked, voice suddenly colder. Ryan swallowed hard, and then he said a name I had never heard before. Claire, what are you doing here? Claire didn't slam the door behind her. That would have been easier, honestly. A clean sound for a clean conflict. Instead, she closed it gently, like she belonged there, like she'd done it 100 times. And the quiet click of the lock felt louder than a shout. She looked at Ryan first, relief and worry mixing on her face. I heard you were in the hospital. Ryan stood up too fast, then winced, steadying himself with a hand on the back of the couch. Claire, what are you doing here? Then her eyes moved to me, to the glass of water in my hand, to my coat still on, to the carrots on the counter, like I'd been feeding him something human. Her expression tightened, the warmth draining out. Who is this? Ryan's throat bobbed. This is Emma. Claire's eyebrows lifted. Emma. Ryan nodded quickly, like speed could fix it. It's not what you think. There was an intake mistake at a clinic. My phone listed her as my emergency contact. The hospital called her. Claire stared at him like he'd just recited the plot of a bad movie. That's your explanation. It's not an explanation. It's the truth, Ryan said, voice sharper now. She came because the hospital called. That's it. Claire's gaze cut back to me. Her smile wasn't a smile. It was a warning. So you just show up at my ex's apartment to take care of him? I swallowed. I didn't plan to. I was trying to get my number removed from the system. That's all. Claire tilted her head slightly. Right. There was something about that one word. Like she'd already decided what kind of woman I was. Ryan stepped closer to her, careful, like he was trying not to trigger a landmine. Claire, we're not together. That seemed to hit her more than anything. Her eyes flashed. I know we're not together. You made that very clear when you decided you didn't want to try anymore. Ryan's jaw tightened. This is not the time. Claire laughed, short and bitter. When is the time, Ryan? When you're bleeding on a sidewalk and a random girl takes your place. I felt heat rush to my face. My instinct was to defend myself, to prove I wasn't taking anyone's place. But the truth was uglier and simpler. I was here because of a mistake. A stupid autofill field. I wasn't his person. I wasn't even supposed to be in this story. Ryan's voice softened, almost pleading. Claire, please. I'm not in the mood for this. Claire's eyes flicked to the bandage on his brow. For a second, her expression cracked, the worry showing through again. Then she noticed me still standing there, and the crack sealed shut. You're always not in the mood, she said. You shut down and pretend it's maturity. It's not. It's avoidance. Ryan flinched like she'd slapped a bruise. I took a step back, already moving toward the door. I should go. Ryan turned to me immediately. Emma, no. Please don't leave because of this. Claire's laugh came again, colder. Of course. Now you're begging her to stay. Ryan snapped. Stop. The room felt too small. The air felt used up. I grabbed my bag from the chair. My hands were steady, but my chest wasn't. Ryan, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. It's okay. You don't owe me anything. His eyes met mine, wide and frustrated. I'm not trying to owe you. I'm trying to explain. But Claire was already talking again. Words sharp and fast like she'd rehearsed them in her head on the way over. He does this. He lets people play hero for him, and then he disappears emotionally the second it gets real. Ryan's face hardened. That's not true. It is, Claire said. Then she looked at me again. If you're smart, you'll leave before you get attached to a man who only accepts love as a favor. That sentence hit me right in the ribs. Because my worst fear wasn't that Ryan would hurt me on purpose. It was that I would keep showing up, and it would never be wanted. Only useful. Only convenient. Only accidental. Ryan stepped toward me, voice low. Emma, look at me. This is not what this is. I wanted to believe him. I did. But I could feel my own dignity pulling me back like a leash. I forced a small smile that didn't reach anywhere real. You should rest. Your sister is coming this weekend. You'll be fine. Ryan's eyes were bright with something like panic. Emma, I opened the door. Cold air hit my face like a slap, and I welcomed it. Behind me, I heard Ryan say, Claire, give me my key. Claire replied, no. And then I was out in the hallway, the doors shutting quietly behind me, sealing them inside their history. I walked to my car on autopilot. My throat burned. My eyes stayed dry, stubbornly, until I got in and closed the door and the silence wrapped around me. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Ryan, please don't listen to her. I need to explain. You didn't do anything wrong. I stared at it, my pulse climbing. Then another text. Ryan, I swear you were not a mistake to me. That word again. Mistake. I couldn't take it. With one sharp motion, I blocked his number. My screen went quiet, like I'd finally stopped the snowball. I started the car and drove home, telling myself I'd done the right thing. I'd protected my boundaries. I'd returned to normal life. But normal life felt hollow that night. My apartment was too still. The laundry pile looked like an accusation. An hour later, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. Missed call. Then a notification appeared. New voicemail. I stared at the screen, my stomach turning. Because if Ryan was blocked, that meant he called from somewhere else. And the part of me I didn't want to admit was still listening, still hoping, still wondering what a stranger might say when he finally chose his words carefully. I didn't play it right away. I set my phone on the counter like it might bite me, then walked to my window and stared out at the streetlights. The world outside looked normal. Cars passing, someone walking a dog, a neighbor's TV flickering behind blinds. Meanwhile, my chest felt like it had a second heartbeat. I told myself I didn't owe him anything. I'd already done more than enough. I'd shown up at a hospital for a stranger. I'd walked him home. I'd become part of a mess that wasn't mine. And still, my hand kept drifting back to the phone. Because the voicemail wasn't a text. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't him chasing me down in a hallway. It was a recorded version of someone thinking before he spoke. I picked up the phone, sat on the edge of my couch, and pressed play. There was a second of silence, like the line had connected and he didn't know if he should breathe. Then Ryan's voice came through low and steady. Emma, it's Ryan. A pause. I'm calling from my work phone because I think you blocked me. Which fair? He let out a small breath that wasn't a laugh, just resignation. I'm not calling to convince you of anything. I'm not calling to drag you back into my life. I'm calling because I can't stand the idea that you walked out of my apartment thinking you were nothing. My throat tightened. He continued, voice more careful now, like he was placing each word on the table. Yes, the emergency contact thing was a mistake. A stupid, human, annoying mistake. Another pause. But you showing up wasn't. I pressed my fingers to my lips, trying to keep my breathing quiet, like he could hear me through time. I didn't know you, he said. And you still came. You didn't owe me that. You didn't owe my sister that. You didn't owe anyone that. You chose it. His voice softened. And for a second, I could hear the fatigue behind it. The truth behind the toughness. Claire showing up, that's my past. I didn't invite her. She still has a key because I never asked for it back. That's on me. A sharp exhale. Anger at himself, not at me. I should have handled it better. I should have protected you from walking into something you didn't sign up for. My eyes burn now, but I refused to cry. Like tears would mean I'd already surrendered. Then his voice shifted, quieter, more vulnerable. And Emma, I did recognize your name. My stomach flipped again. I'm not proud of that, he said. Not because it's wrong, but because it made me hope for a second that the universe wasn't just messing with me, that maybe it had circled back. He paused. I could hear background noise, faint office hum, like he was sitting alone somewhere to make this call. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I'm not asking you to be my anything. My breath caught. I'm asking you for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Just enough time to be human. Just one walk, he said, voice calm. Somewhere public. No pressure. I'll give you your space. I just want to say thank you properly. And I want to say goodbye properly, if that's what you want. The last word came out soft. Like he was accepting a loss he didn't want to accept. Then, after a long pause, he added something that broke the hard shell around my heart in one clean crack. I've spent a long time thinking meeting someone makes me weak. His voice dipped even lower, almost a confession. But last night, when I woke up and they told me they called my emergency contact, I wasn't thinking about strength. I was thinking, please, let someone show up. I closed my eyes. And you did. Silence again. Just his breathing. Emma, he said finally. You weren't a mistake to me. You were the only part of that night that felt safe. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Then his voice steadied, professional again, like he was trying to give me an exit, a way out. I'll be at Riverside Park tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. by the Little Footbridge. 10 minutes. If you don't come, I'll understand. I won't call again. Another pause. I hope you're okay. The voicemail ended with a soft click. And suddenly my apartment felt too quiet to hold what I just heard. I stared at the dark screen, my hands trembling. He wasn't asking to be rescued. He wasn't asking to be chased. He was asking to be met. Briefly. Honestly. And the worst part was, it wasn't romantic persuasion that got me. It was the respect. He was giving me a choice. I stood up and paced once, then twice, then stopped in the middle of my living room like a confused compass needle. My brain screamed, don't go. Protect your boundaries. But something deeper whispered, you can have boundaries and still be kind. I checked the time. It was already late, but not too late. I opened my contacts. Found his number. The blocked icon sat there like a locked door. My finger hovered over it. If I unblocked him, it didn't mean I was committing to anything. It just meant I wasn't punishing him for someone else's behavior. I unblocked the number. Then I didn't text him. Not yet. I needed the choice to stay mine. The next day at 6:24 p.m., I parked near Riverside Park and sat in my car with both hands gripping the steering wheel. 10 minutes, I told myself. 10 minutes is not a relationship. I walked toward the footbridge. The park was calm, early evening light turning everything gold. Joggers passing, a couple walking slowly, fingers intertwined, a kid on a scooter. And then I saw him. Ryan stood near the little footbridge exactly like he said he would, hands in his jacket pockets, posture stiff like he was trying to look casual and failing. The bandage was gone now, leaving a thin healing line on his brow. He looked up when he heard my footsteps, and for a split second, his face did something unguarded. Relief, sharp and real, like he'd been holding his breath all day. He didn't rush toward me. He didn't crowd me. He just nodded, like he didn't want to scare me away. Emma, he said, voice quiet. I stopped a few feet away, the distance deliberate. Ryan, I replied. He swallowed, then lifted something in his hand. Paperwork. My eyes narrowed. What's that? Ryan glanced down at it, then back at me, and there was a small, nervous smile that didn't match the seriousness in his eyes. This, he said, is me making sure you never get called again. He held the paperwork out slightly, not forcing it into my hands, just offering it like proof. I printed confirmation from the clinic and the hospital system, he said. Emergency contact updated. Your number removed. I asked them to add an extra note to flag it if it ever shows up again. My chest tightened, because that was the thing. He didn't just apologize with words. He fixed it. He looked at me carefully. I wanted you to see it, so you could feel safe. I swallowed. Thank you. Ryan nodded once, then took a slow breath. Okay, he said. Now 10 minutes. I let out a small laugh that sounded more like nerves than humor. You timed it. He lifted his phone slightly. I did, because I meant it. I'm not here to pressure you. The park breeze moved a strand of hair across my cheek. I brushed it back, suddenly aware of how close we were to being something and how far we still were. Ryan's eyes softened. I'm sorry you walked into my past. I held his gaze. I'm sorry you didn't lock your door on it. He winced, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Yeah, fair. We stood there, the river moving quietly under the bridge, the world passing around us like we were paused in place. And for the first time since this started, I felt something settle. Not certainty, but possibility. Ryan shifted his weight and said, voice low, if you still want me to disappear after this, I will. No hard feelings. I stared at him for a long second. Then I said the truth, the one that scared me. I don't want you to disappear. Ryan's breath caught. He didn't step closer. He didn't touch me. He just looked at me like he was trying not to break the moment with anything too big. Okay, he said softly. Then what do you want? My heart beat hard, but my voice stayed calm. I want to be in your phone again, I said, but not because the tablet decided it. Ryan blinked, then a small smile formed, slow and careful, like sunrise. On purpose, he whispered. On purpose, I confirmed. And the 10 minutes suddenly felt like the beginning of something that had nothing to do with mistakes at all. Ryan didn't rush it. He didn't step closer like a movie hero, or touch my hand like the universe had given him permission. He just nodded once, slow, like he was absorbing the fact that I was still here by choice. Okay, he said quietly. Then let's do this the right way. He held up his phone, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward me, without moving into my space. I want to add you, he said, voice steady. But only if you actually want to be there. No weird labels. No emergency shortcuts. No accidents. A jogger passed behind him, the sound of shoes on gravel filling the little gap between us. The river slid under the bridge like it had all the time in the world. I swallowed. Add me. Ryan's thumb hovered over the screen. Name. I almost joked. I almost said toothpaste hero, just to protect myself from feeling something real. But I didn't. Emma, I said. Then, after a beat, just Emma. He typed it in, then paused. Phone number. I gave it to him out loud, digit by digit. The simplest thing in the world, and it felt like handing someone a key. He saved it. Then he looked up at me, and the softness in his eyes made my chest tighten in that dangerous way. The way that says, careful. This matters now. There's one more thing, he said. My stomach flipped. What? Ryan tapped a few more times, then turned the screen again. He pulled up his emergency contact settings. The name at the top was Sarah. I already changed it, he said quickly. This stays. My sister is my emergency contact. That's not changing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Good. Ryan nodded, then his voice dropped lower. But I want you in my life. Not as a backup plan. Not as a fill-in. Not as an accident that happened to be kind. His words landed carefully, like he was building a bridge plank by plank. I want you as, he hesitated, and a faint, nervous smile touched his mouth. As the person I call because I want to. Not because I'm bleeding. Not because I'm scared. Just because it's Tuesday, and I saw something that made me think of you. My throat tightened. I looked away toward the river, because if I held his gaze any longer, I was going to cry in a public park, and I wasn't emotionally prepared for that kind of character development. When I looked back, Ryan was watching me like he wasn't trying to win, just trying to be understood. You're doing a lot of things right now that I'm not used to, I admitted. Ryan exhaled softly. Same. We started walking, slowly, side by side, not touching, the space between us both protective and honest. After a minute, I asked, Did you take your key back from Claire? Ryan winced. Not yet. I stopped walking. He stopped too. Ryan. I know, he said fast. I'm handling it. I promise. I didn't want you to think I'm still in that. I studied his face, looking for defensiveness, for excuses. All I saw was effort. Okay, I said finally. Handle it. I will, he repeated, and the certainty in his voice felt real this time. We crossed the footbridge, and the wooden boards creaked under our steps. The sunset made the water look like it had been dusted with copper. Ryan cleared his throat. Can I ask you something? I raised an eyebrow. Depends. Is it weird? Yes, he said immediately, then gave a small smile. But in a good way. I waited. He looked forward, not at me, like it was easier to say it sideways. When the hospital called you, what made you answer? I didn't have to think. The truth was already living in my body. The second ring, I said. The first one I ignored. Then it rang again and I felt, I don't know, like it mattered. Ryan nodded, almost himself. Yeah. I glanced at him. What about you? Why did you even go to that urgent care? He huffed a laugh. Because I was trying to be responsible. And because you were scared, I added gently. Ryan didn't deny it. Yeah. A quiet settled between us, soft and strangely safe. Then he said, I don't want to call you my emergency contact. I blinked, confused. Okay. He stopped walking again, turning toward me fully now. His expression was serious, but his eyes were warm. I want to call you my person, he said, but I know that's big. Too big. Too soon. My heart punched once, hard. Ryan swallowed. So I'm not asking for big. I'm asking for small. Real small. He took a breath, like he was stepping off a ledge. Dinner, he said. This weekend. A real dinner. Not a hospital. Not coffee as an apology. Just dinner. You and me. On purpose. I stared at him, and my brain tried to protect me with all the old scripts. Don't. It's complicated. It started weird. You'll get hurt. But my body, remember the way he hadn't pressured me. The way he fixed what he broke. The way he didn't try to make me responsible for his loneliness. And I realized something simple and terrifying. This wasn't a man asking to be saved. This was a man asking to be chosen. I let out a slow breath. Okay. Ryan blinked, like he wasn't sure he heard right. Okay. Okay. I repeated, and a smile slipped out before I could stop it. Dinner. His shoulders dropped, relief washing through him so visibly it made my chest ache. He didn't touch me. He didn't grab my hand. He just smiled back, quiet and real. Great. We kept walking, and the air felt different now, lighter. Like the world had shifted 2 degrees toward hope. At the edge of the park, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Sarah, how did it go? Please tell me he didn't scare you off. I looked at the message, then at Ryan, who was watching me carefully. What, he asked. I held up my phone, so he could see. Ryan groaned softly. She's relentless. I typed back. Me? He didn't scare me off. He's handling things. Also, we're getting dinner this weekend. Ryan's eyes widened slightly. You told her? I did, I said, and couldn't resist adding. On purpose. He shook his head, smiling now, and something in his face softened, like he'd finally stopped bracing for impact. When we reached my car, I turned to him. So, dinner. Dinner, he confirmed. And boundaries, I added, because I needed him to know I wasn't abandoning myself. Ryan nodded, immediate and sincere. Absolutely. I hesitated, then said, and no more surprises at your door. His expression turned serious again. Never again. I believed him. Ryan stepped back, giving me space, and for a moment we just stood there. 2 people who had started as a clerical error and somehow ended up here. Then he said, voice low and almost shy, Emma. Yeah. He smiled, small and genuine. Thank you for answering the second ring. My eyes stung again. I shook my head, smiling through it. Don't make it a thing. Ryan's smile grew just a little. Too late. I got into my car, and as I drove home, my phone felt different in my pocket. Not like a trap. Not like a stranger's emergency. Just a simple device holding one new, very intentional fact. Ryan Carter was no longer an accident in my life. And for the first time in a long time, that didn't scare me. It felt like the start of something that might actually last.
If this story stayed with you, the next one is already on your screen. Click to keep watching and subscribe for more real stories like this.